If you're thinking of studying in South Africa, or you've heard about the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Scholarship and wondered what it actually takes to win, this conversation is for you. So today I'm joined by Melisa, a graduate of the University of Cape Town and a Mandela Rhodes Foundation Scholar, one of the most competitive and prestigious scholarships on the continent. So we are going to talk about studying in South Africa, what life at UCT is really like, and most importantly, how you can position yourself to win the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Scholarship. So, Melisa, thank you so much for joining in this channel. I just want to start by for people who don't know you. So take us back from the beginning. What's your name? Where are you from? And what did you study at UCT? And maybe also what you did before going to South Africa to study.
Okay, thanks for having me, Chuma. As you have correctly said, my name is Melisa Bhebe, and I completed my master's in public health at the University of Cape Town. You asked me a lot of questions in one, but
So yeah, what you said you were practicing as a GP before moving to South Africa. So what informed your choice of public health? Just
okay.
transitioning from being a doctor to now public health. What inspired that?
To be honest, most of it was rooted in me just being a community-oriented girl. So when I started my undergrad, which starts with basic medical sciences, and then you move on to clinical, and somewhere in between you do some community medicine studies and rotations. And I always found that whenever we had to talk about disease processes, for example, things that are affecting communities, I was more concerned about the people's position, the people that we were talking about in terms of what are their circumstances, what is their reality that leads them to maybe be mostly affected by certain diseases or certain ways of life that predispose people to certain conditions, or just lack of knowledge of how to take care of yourselves. So I just thought I was more interested in studying sort of the behavior and understanding of people of health, and also trying to see how I can sort of avoid all the people that come into my GP practice with conditions that I think can be avoided. So I think that was like a nagging thing for me that was ongoing, to see that it's fine as a general practitioner, I'm offering services and curative services, but I wanted to go back and see like what in the community can be changed and can be researched so that we better sort of provide care for communities and people.
So many people would decide to pursue further studies in Europe, in North America. So I was just curious to understand why South Africa and why University of Cape Town.
Okay, I think I would not be 100% honest if I said I just had my mind set on South Africa and the University of Cape Town from the beginning. I had a couple of options that I was obviously considering, including some European countries. And I remember the University of Glasgow was very high on my list of places I possibly wanted to go because of some reputation that they have with global health as well. But South Africa came easily as an option, came on top as an option because it's close to home to begin with. And I was interested in the existence of South Africa as sort of a progressive African country, if we can put it like that. So it sort of has global standards of excellence in terms of the academia, but also it's very much in Africa, and it very much experiences the African problems that all African countries face. And so I thought that this would be like the best environment to sort of get the best global excellence in terms of education, but also being rooted in like real world or real African complexities.
So yeah, that's beautiful. I know it's just next door from your country. And how come I didn't know you were from near Victoria Falls in Wange?
You've
You
been
owe me an
pretending to
invite.
be my friend all these years. I am.
So we'll talk
I'm
about
only
that.
100 kilometers from Victoria Falls, really. And the last place that I was actually working at was a private practice. I was working as a doctor in Victoria Falls. Yeah.
There are many tourists
Of course.
visiting your practice at the time.
Yes, I did have some tourists visit my country. I mean, my practice, and most of it was really from adventurous tourists, maybe spraining an ankle or fracturing a limb or something from all the bungee jumping and rafting activities in the river.
I'm sure this was not your first time going to South Africa, but what did you think of studying there? And when you got there, what surprised you the most?
I would say that I had contact with South Africa before, but it was in a very different kind of capacity. Most of it was, I don't know if economic reasons make sense, but we had a couple of visits with my mom that we would come over
Mhm.
and get a few things from South Africa that were sort of economically viable at the time for trade and sell and whatever. So the environment was very different in coming in sort of as a student and for the academic environment and space. I think some of my
Mhm.
expectations, let me see, I thought that the place would be more, I don't know if Afrocentric is the word, but I found that in reality it's more mixed bag than I imagined. Maybe it's
Mm.
particularly because of Cape Town and some of its uniqueness, but it really did feel
Yeah.
like I have come to like a mini Europe in the middle of Africa in a sense, in terms of just the diversity of the people that are both in lectureship as well as the people that you're with in a course and even in the city outside. So that was a little bit, yeah, and a little bit surprising.
So, um, what are maybe so talking to people who are considering coming to study in South
Mhm,
Africa, what are
mhm.
the biggest mistakes you see international students make when they first arrive or even before they arrive?
Um, Maybe this is a funny one, especially for me that you said I'm right next door. I have a lot of East and West African friends that I've met both via the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship and just at the university. And one of the things, I don't know if it's a mistake or if this is just like what we are as humans, but most of my friends really struggle to sort of settle in, especially in the first few months. There is a lot of comparison of like life back home is, oh my God. And it
Mhm.
becomes so nagging because there's such a shift when you move into a place that's very different culturally. You start even getting
Yeah.
annoyed by like the taste of the onions or something, or just that the bread or the bananas taste really differently.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of change. And if you concentrate too much on some of the small things without sort of thinking of it as an adventure, as a, oh wow, this is like a new whole life that's unlocking and a lot of these new experiences. And if you hold on too much without fully engaging with everything that's happening locally, you might like steal the experience from yourself and underestimate sort of how important it is to meet new people and get new mentors in a
Mhm.
new space. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good tip to focus on the positive and just
Yeah,
be open-minded to new experiences. So that's a really good tip there. So let's talk
absolutely.
about life outside the classroom. How affordable is South Africa? And especially as a student.
I would say that coming here with a scholarship certainly helps because you do get cushioned in terms of your living expenses and other things. But it's this is an interesting thing because affordability also depends on where you're coming from. Coming from a
Yeah.
Zimbabwean economy, it did feel a little bit like relief in terms of having to switch my mind from working on a multi-currency brain where each time I have to be calculating like how many US dollars am I losing if I'm going to be using this my Zim dollars, you're always in a state of like converting amounts and currencies in your head, trying to find the best
Yeah.
deal or the best bargain deal. But there's sort of like a peace that comes with knowing that, okay, you are now in the rand economy, don't have any other comparisons to be making with. You just, the money you have is the money you're spending. There isn't a black market somewhere where you could like inflate the value of the money that you have. But I would say it's sort of an expensive city, especially if you're in Cape Town. South Africa as a country in general, you can like make your money stretch if you are in certain parts of the country, but there's certainly certain cities and towns where life is a little more expensive, and Cape Town is that one good example where you have to be careful because you're dealing with mostly students, or just the environment is filled with Europeans that here, especially for the summers, and so everything is sort of on a touristy level in terms of costs.
I'm trying to figure out ideally how much an international student would spend per month, considering tuition fees. No, not
Tuition fees.
tuition, but just living costs in terms of rent, food, and other expenses. Do you have a rough number on average?
I had not thought about that before this, but I would quickly say rent would be somewhere about 6,000 Rand. We can make the conversion later. And then food, and just like food, Wi-Fi, and that's also the other thing that you now have to think about cost of everything. So it's food, Wi-Fi,
Yes.
electricity. You have to pay for that additional to your rent. So maybe I would say 3,000 to 4,000 Rand, including food, Wi-Fi, and electricity.
Yeah.
And then transport costs, the University of Cape Town has what we call journeys, but it's buses that are always roving around different stops throughout the day. So transport, if you can plan your life around the transport that the university is providing, it can be negligible. You can actually manage to move from where you're staying to the uni, and there's a journey that goes into the city as well. So if you want to go if an outside university program, you want to see a concert or go into the city, you can still use the bus. And there is also a train, which is very safe and reliable. There are many lines of the train, so there's definitely sides of the train that students sort of avoid. But the general, what we call the southern suburbs that have the city and most of the university, you can get on a train that costs 10 Rand for a journey. But I would still put a budget for transport for sure, because you still need to get Ubers to get to other places. And maybe, let's say if you're being really frugal, 1,000 Rand a month for transportation. And in total, is there any costs that you think I've left out that's important?
Did you talk about utilities like gas, electricity?
Yes. So
Are they all in
electricity,
the rent?
Wi-Fi,
Okay.
electricity, Wi-Fi, and groceries, I put all of it in 4,000 Rand.
Okay.
So about 11, 12,000 Rand.
Yeah, and maybe just convenience, entertainment, clothes.
Yeah, and those will be varying depending on your style and
Yes.
yeah. So maybe we can put it around 12,000 Rand or 13,000 Rand. Which if we convert, do you have a calculator close to you? I suppose I'm supposed to be good at math,
Yeah.
but here we are. 13,000 rands. I'll just give you the USD value is around $800.
800, okay.
Yeah,
That's per
810,
month.
820 per month. Yeah.
How much for a typical master's degree? How much is the tuition costs per year? Do you know? Or for the program? Is
So
it around how much?
they're very different depending on the program that you'll be doing. A course, maybe we can talk about the cost of a course per semester is between 6,000 to 8,000 Rand. Maybe 6 to 8,000 Rand per course. And
Okay.
most master's degrees have at least 8 courses and at most 12 courses. So if you can work it out there, that one course will be between 6,000 to 8,000 Rand, and you're taking 8 courses minimum to complete the obligations of your degree, or 12 courses depending. So that's, and then the most expensive thing is your dissertation. You pay for it separately for supervision and all the dissertation, depending as well on the degree. I think mine is 42,000 Rand a year. And for the courses that we're talking about, you register for the year as well. So if it's 8,000, that's for a course for the whole year. Yeah.
So that's 42,000. About how much in dollars in US?
Give me a second.
What's the conversion rate?
It is Oh, $2,600. The conversion rate has recently actually dropped to around 16, I think, or 16.5.
So 2,600. Okay. That's not too bad.
Yeah, for the dissertation.
Oh, that's just the dissertation.
That's just the dissertation. But
Okay.
the 8 to 12 courses that you're doing, you're not doing them all in 1 year. So 4 courses per year. And if you're taking so 4 courses per year, if one is 7,000, yeah, you're paying about 2,000 US dollars for the first year for only 4 courses. And usually dissertation is in the second year for a master's. And so in the second year is when you will need 4,000 for your other 4 courses plus dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
So what I hear you say is the whole program is just under 10,000 just
More
in
or less.
tuition and dissertation,
More or less.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I bring that perspective just because people usually just think about, Europe and North America, but just to say there are other like affordable options because my own program costs like just for 1 year over 40,000 Canadian dollars. So that's about
Crazy.
30,000 thereabout. So to say, you can explore other options, especially within Africa or in other countries that are affordable. In Europe, in the UK, you're paying over £20,000 just in 1 year, you see? So that's about 25,000 for the program. And that's not including costs related to your daily living expenses. So just to encourage people that there are other options that we can explore, right? And also, it would be great if you can have the scholarship, but not everyone will be fortunate enough to have the scholarship. So then what do you do from there? Do you sit around and wait, or
Yeah.
do you look for other affordable options? So that's really good, which leads me to my next question on the scholarship. So you did apply for the Mandela Rhodes Foundation Scholarship.
Yeah.
And you got in, unsurprisingly. So what do you think made your application stand out when you reflect back on it?
Honestly, I think that even my journey to applying is an interesting one. I had a friend that had the scholarship before me, a couple of years before me, and I was just sort of in a conversation with them about how, I was just the thinking process that you're saying, you're thinking about doing something, but are you just going to stand around and, talking to friends about what's out there? And then she said, "Oh no, I got the scholarship and it has what you call this, an age restriction of 30 years, I think, or 29 years. And I think I was 28 and a half or something around that age when I was thinking about this, which means I just had one application cycle for me to be too old to apply. So I think I'm saying this because I'm prefacing, I think it gave me sort of the energy to put everything into the application because I was like, I just have one choice. I don't have the luxury of saying I'll try again next year. And I try to make sure that it stands out. I think I was clear about purpose and why I think I was aligned with the organization or the scholarship and what it stands for. And I tried to connect my personal journey, my personal life experiences, my professional experience, and my ambitions for leadership in Africa, and all the sort of things I thought I could be uniquely positioned to contribute to the continent. And I think just as a summary, that's probably what I try to do in my application.
Yeah. You've achieved a lot, so that's why I said no surprises. So we talked a bit about the costs, right? Living expenses, tuition, and you also mentioned dissertation costs, which is kind of surprising to me, but okay. So what does this scholarship cover?
It's pretty comprehensive. They cover tuition, and as well as when they say tuition, they mean everything we spoke about in terms of paying for your courses and your dissertation, and registration, any fees associated with registrations at the beginning. And they also cover living expenses. And in the beginning, they also give you an extra allowance for settling in, and I think they call it laptop allowance or something. So if you need to get a new laptop, they include that in the allowance. And by living expenses, how they structure it is you receive your money in your personal account for your living expenses, and they pay tuition and everything associated with the school directly to the school. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you able to live comfortably with this scholarship without looking for a part-time job while studying?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. You you are able to live comfortably. Also depends, because the Mandela Rhodes Scholarship is not only for the University of Cape Town, it's also for any South African university. So it also depends on what
Mm-hmm.
university you've chosen to come and study at. I say that because I already preface that the cost of living in different cities are very different. And so if you're in Johannesburg or Pretoria, I think we had a few people who were at the Rhodes University and Stellenbosch University. It sort of differs, and you spend the most if you're in Cape
Yeah.
Town, at the University of Cape Town. And it's not just living expenses outside, it's even rentals, the options for rentals. When you're looking for a place to stay, you're considering the cost plus the safety plus the proximity to the school and all those things. But yeah, you pay the most in Cape Town. But in Johannesburg, I had some friends in my cohort who were paying almost half of what I was paying in Cape Town. So obviously, if you're not at the University of Cape Town, you're elsewhere, you manage to live more comfortably. But even when you're here, the money sort of covers all the basics. Yeah, you shouldn't live like
Okay.
a millionaire.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to know. And talking about this scholarship, there will be people who want to apply, who are interested. I'm
Mhm.
just thinking, you mentioned you have to be, I think at the time you are applying, you had to be 28, below 29 years, I think. What are the eligibility criteria can you think about? And then when does it open and close?
Okay. I think it opens, I know it closes on the 21st or the 22nd of April every year. And you have to be between the ages of 19 to 29 at the year of applying. You're a citizen of an African country. See what else they say. You have to also finish your undergraduate studies by the time you come in to study. I think another one, which I'm trying to think about when it opens. I think it opens in February or March, if it's not already open, but it definitely closes on the 22nd of April each year. Yeah, and you can also
Okay.
go on the website, which is Mandela Rhodes, and you can try and check your own eligibility. They have a way of you quickly checking your eligibility before you commit to the application.
Yeah, I'll just put the link to the scholarship in the description box. So also they should be able to just Google. I mean, this information is online now, right? Anyway, so other than those criteria you mentioned, what else do you think the selection committee is looking for in those applications? Do you have to be a leader in your community, or are you someone who gives back? And how can you position those in your essays?
Yeah, definitely being a leader in your community does hold a lot of weight, but it's not necessarily that you have to be someone that's in the newspaper every day, or who's well known for leadership in their community. You could be someone who actually has sort of the seed of wanting to be a community leader, but it's helpful if you have engaged in some
Yeah.
community transformation activities, giving back activities in your community. But they're really looking, yes, for that quality of leadership. But you also have to be someone who loves being an African. I don't know if I can stress this enough. They're very like a Pan-African organization, and your pride in being African, it shines through in your application, even in the interview process. And you also have to kind of understand the four main things that the organization is sort of rooted in, leadership being one, entrepreneurship being another. They believe very much that, Africa is going to take its rightful place, as they say, in the world economy. And if you're somebody who's maybe engaged in some entrepreneurial activities back home, or maybe it's your family, or it's an interest that you have that can also put you forward. But also,
Yeah.
the name Mandela Rhodes put together, if you know the history of South Africa, or just the history of apartheid in Southern Africa, you will understand why it is such an interesting combination of two people in a scholarship. And that's why they also think reconciliation is one of those things. So you could be someone who's helping in some conflict at home, or you recognize some forms of reconciliation that still need to happen in Africa, or some that you're interested in. If you can combine your leadership skills with being able to coexist in conflict, and realize that conflict will always be there, whether it's in your family. You could have an example at home where you actually led a reconciliation process in just your nuclear family, or your village, or your school, things like that. And education is the last one, obviously, your academic results, and also that you somebody who's looking to advance themselves in their education.
So I know there are people who are watching right now who are in the midst of just preparing to put together their application. If you had to give them 3 tips, 2 to 3 tips, what would those be?
I think that the first and foremost, I always say this, I think every Mandela Rhodes Scholar says this, but be authentic, be yourself. It's a space where, I suppose, in the application process, it's all scary, and you want to be competitive among 2,000 applicants. But the more that you bring your real authentic self forward in your application, not try to be generic and sound like what you think the application is looking for, is one tip I'll give. And another thing is maybe show evidence of your leadership in action. So in any of those things I mentioned previously, any leadership in your community, any leadership in entrepreneurial space, any leadership in leading some kind of reconciliation, conversation, actions, maybe leadership in terms of academics as well. I think maybe if I would say the last thing would be, you need to have like to be able to articulate like a clear vision that you have for Africa, even if it's something that you wouldn't personally be able to drive as an individual, but to show that you can visualize Africa going in a certain direction, and you think you can contribute to that. And if it's grounded in service and impact, that even makes your application stand.
Yeah. Okay. So be authentic, have a vision for the continent. That's really, really key. And yeah, I mean, you'd expect that for Mandela Rhodes Scholarship. So anyway, thank you for the tips. So of course you've gone through the scholarship now and you've completed it. How do you think being a Mandela Rhodes Scholar has shaped who you are today, or who you're becoming?
I think what I would say is it definitely has changed a little bit my worldview. I would say coming into the scholarship, I expected a lot of it to be very oriented towards hammering in leadership for Africa. But I was confronted with the fact that I was confronted with myself. Most of the programmatic design is for you to examine your positionality in Africa, or your sense of heritage of where you come from, or just your sense of who you are as an individual and what's brought you to being a Mandela Rhodes Scholar. And it's a bit, it takes you aback a bit, because you're expecting to maybe immediately start, trying to find solutions to Africa's problems. But it's really made me, now when I approach any sort of job opportunity or any collaborative opportunity, is first start thinking of the people in the room as humans who also have very different backgrounds, and they're coming in with like very different exposures and predispositions, and understanding that we all sort of have the common goal of making the continent or the country in, or your community better, but we all have personalities, and we have to navigate those as we work together, in most cases towards a common goal. So say, not that it made me self-conscious, because self-consciousness doesn't sound positive, but it did in a sense. And it made me conscious of the fact that every time I'm collaborating or working in a team or thinking about change, I'm working with people who have also been exposed to very different things. So that's sort of the approach that has changed for me. And also just I don't think I used to do this before, but now I like very much to clarify sort of and understand the culture of a place. I know, especially in the West, there's a lot of conversation about, company culture. What's the company culture? But Mandela Rhodes hammered in me as well to try and understand that sometimes your values don't really align with the people that you're trying to work with. And you don't always have to force your way into some spaces where your values are being compromised. You have to put your values first and make sure that you claim space where you are and make people understand that there's certain things that you will not stand for or tolerate, even if it's you sort of have to close your eyes, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely gives you a different worldview, a different perspective. I think you're right to say, you're more self-aware and you want to clarify things and you just want to make sure that, yeah, like we understand the same thing and not to be misinterpreted or otherwise. So that's really good. I
Mm,
think traveling, and you've traveled a lot. So I think I always say through traveling, you learn a lot more than even a master's program,
mm,
so that just gives you a different worldview. So anyway, I'm hoping to
mm,
see bigger changes in the continent from you. I think we have very high expectations of you because of what you've been able to achieve. And it's like a less than 1% selection rate for this scholarship. So definitely it's really competitive and we are proud of you and your achievement. So now, what's your final message to African students who are, dreaming of studying in South Africa or winning this scholarship? And not only this scholarship, but other scholarships as well.
Yeah, I would say that it's good you mentioned other scholarships at the end. I think it's important that you sort of really do your research when you're thinking about postgraduate education. And another thing I should mention is that the Mandela Rhodes doesn't only support masters, it also supports honors, which is like the degree in between undergraduate and masters that they have in South Africa. So if that's an option for you to apply for an honors rather than a master's, you can still explore it with the Mandela Rhodes Foundation. But yeah, do your research, find out other scholarships that are available. I mean, I didn't prepare a list, but there's many other funding opportunities within the university and as well as outside. And I have some friends who are from departments that have special scholarships that have to do with the programs that they are applying for. For example, conservation. I have some friends in conservation that have very unique scholarships that only the people in the field sort of know about. So I think networking, it brings me into my next point, which is just get used to talking about yourself and sharing your story and networking with people who can sort of help you move to the next step, and look for mentors in your field and people that are doing things that you think are admirable, things that you aspire to do and be. Definitely have a mentor and someone that you can talk to who's maybe already done the program you're looking at. And I think apply with confidence, boldly, and just know that your story matters and your uniqueness is what is most important for the world generally, not just for scholarship applications. So just bring your uniqueness and your unique story. If you're from wherever, whatever part of Africa, just bring your story as it is, and it will stand out because of its uniqueness. Yeah.
Two things I took away: be authentic, bring your story, and just research, and also network. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much, Melisa, for giving us your time and a wealth of knowledge. Are you going to go back to medicine just out of curiosity, or are you going to research?
Yeah, I always get this question, and I think having stepped away from practice for a couple of years, it gave me a lot of time to sort of compare the different options for where my career in life can go. And if I'm being perfectly honest, I have missed practice. I've missed the human interaction that practice sort of afforded me, because research, you mostly just behind the computer meeting deadlines and publishing and things like that. And I found that to be a little dull for me. And I'm looking forward to a future where I can be able to still be a researcher. And I would be happy if I'm a researcher in a clinical setting, or if I can be in clinical practice and still contribute to research.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, thanks for sharing your journey and insights. If you found this helpful, please share, subscribe, and like this video. It goes a long way to help someone out there and also to support us. So thank you so much, Melisa, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me.